Welcome to this explainer. Right now, it really feels like we're living through the most profound technological shift since the birth of the mobile internet. We're actively moving away from the app economy, that world where you have to manually click, scroll, and constantly navigate between a dozen different screens, and we're entering what experts are calling the agentic economy of the 2030s. This is a multi-billion-dollar shift. We're talking about a fundamental change from simple tools that just sit there waiting for our input to autonomous agents that actually take action on our behalf. So today, we're going to unpack exactly what this means, who the powerful new players are going to be, and how this is going to completely rewrite the rules for businesses and consumers alike.
All right, let's just dive straight into the roadmap for today. We'll be looking at 1. The rise of AI agents, 2. The 4 gatekeeper layers, 3. The race for AI data, 4. Winning the agent economy, 5. Privacy and ethical risks, and finally, 6. The ultimate AI prize.
So, Section 1, the rise of AI agents. To really grasp the scale of this, we have to ask a pretty wild question. What actually happens when your apps start talking to each other and making decisions for you? And look, this isn't science fiction anymore. By late 2025, during Cyber Week alone, AI agents already influenced $67 billion in global sales. Think about that for a second. People aren't just asking AI for a dinner recipe anymore. They're delegating actual real-world purchasing decisions to it.
So what exactly is an AI agent? Well, the easiest way to think about it is less like a smart calculator and more like a highly capable digital employee working directly for you. An AI agent is essentially an autonomous system that acts entirely on your intent. If you give it a goal, it can go out, coordinate different services, execute a whole chain of transactions, and independently plan all the complex workflows needed to just get the job done. It doesn't just give you an answer, it takes action.
And that really highlights the sheer scale of what's coming. As we transition from downloading a bunch of apps to just delegating our daily tasks to these agents, a massive power vacuum is opening up. Who gets to build these digital employees? And more importantly, who's going to become the powerful new gatekeeper of this entire ecosystem? Which brings us to Section 2, the 4 gatekeeper layers. Here's the crucial thing to understand. The biggest tech companies in the world are placing billion-dollar bets on different levels of this technology stack. It basically breaks down into 4 layers. Layer 1 is infrastructure. Think massive data centers, the physical servers, and those highly specialized microchips. Layer 2 contains the foundational models. These are the core intelligence brains like ChatGPT or Claude. Layer 3 is the agentic OS, which provides the software tools developers need to actually build and orchestrate the AI agents. And finally, Layer 4 is distribution. That's the smartphones, the laptops, and the operating systems where you and I actually interact with the AI every day.
And you really start to see the stakes when you look at the projections from Epoch AI. It is absolutely staggering. The amortized hardware and energy costs just to train these large-scale frontier AI models, they are skyrocketing, growing by 2 to 3 times every single year. We're talking about hundreds of millions and very soon billions of dollars strictly in raw compute power. It is quite literally a game that only the absolute wealthiest corporations on Earth can even afford to play.
So when we look at the real-world leading contenders trying to dominate each layer heading toward 2030, the landscape is fascinating. Down at Layer 1, you've got Amazon with its massive AWS cloud and custom silicon chips. At Layer 2, AI-native labs like OpenAI and Anthropic are building the smartest brains. Up at Layer 3, Microsoft is using Azure AI to become the operating system for enterprise businesses. And at Layer 4, Apple and Google control the ultimate distribution. The iPhones and Androids sitting in our pockets right now. But here is the real twist. These companies are fiercely competing at some layers while being totally dependent on each other at others. Like, OpenAI desperately needs Microsoft's infrastructure to train its models, while Apple uses OpenAI's models to power parts of iOS. It's a wildly complex web. But building the biggest data center isn't the whole story here. With compute power scaling up so aggressively, we really have to ask, is the ultimate bottleneck for these gatekeepers going to be raw processing power? Or is it going to be gaining access to reliable, real-world data to actually teach their models about the world?
That leads us right into Section 3, the race for AI data.
With over 120 data licensing deals expected between AI labs and media publishers by mid-2026, we have to look at how this data is actually being used. The easiest way to picture this is to think of an AI like a student. Foundational training data acts as the model's long-term memory. It's the material the student studies for years.
It dictates what the AI inherently knows about a subject without having to look a single thing up. On the flip side, real-time retrieval, which is often called RAG, acts exactly like an open-book test. The model doesn't have the info memorized, but it can access current, live sources on the internet to pull the most up-to-date answer for whatever the user is asking right then and there.
And this distinction between memory and an open-book test is dictating billion-dollar commercial deals today. For instance, OpenAI signed a massive deal with News Corp that includes both training and live retrieval. That gives those brands deep memory embedding plus live citations. But look at the Washington Post deal. It explicitly excludes training data. The AI can cite their articles live, but it absolutely cannot use them to build its foundational brain. Meanwhile, Amazon is partnering with the New York Times to funnel data directly into Alexa and its Rufus shopping assistant. The takeaway here? If you're a business, your visibility in the 2030s depends almost entirely on whether your brand is mentioned in the publications these AI models are legally allowed to read.
And this brings up a stark reality, but honestly, also a massive opportunity for entrepreneurs. In a world where AI is curating all the answers, optimizing your business to be included in AI's foundational memory or its real-time feeds, that is the new SEO. It's how you guarantee customers actually find you in the 2030s. Being an early adopter and structuring your data so it's easily digested by these models is going to give you a monumental advantage over competitors who are still just optimizing for old-school search engines.
Section 4. Winning the Agent Economy. Let's look at a real-world example of just how fast all of this is moving. Recently, MasterCard launched a product called Agent Pay, designed specifically for machines. Here's how it flows. Step 1. Human intent. An entrepreneur simply asks their AI to build a flower shop website. Step 2. Agent action. The AI doesn't just spit out some advice. It independently goes out, buys a domain name, and selects a hosting service. Step 3. Machine payments. The AI agent automatically settles all those microtransactions across multiple providers instantly, using a budget that you pre-approved. Think about that. You made one request, and your digital employee executed an entire supply chain of purchases in milliseconds, all before you've even finished your morning coffee. That is a profound shift in economic activity. When autonomous agents are the ones actually executing these purchases at machine speed, we really have to ask ourselves, is the traditional business-to-consumer marketing model going to become completely obsolete? Because you won't be advertising to humans anymore. You're going to be optimizing your business to be the default choice for someone else's AI agent. Moving on to Section 5, Privacy and Ethical Risks. We have to talk about the risks because the privacy threats of the 2030s go far, far beyond your standard data breaches. As the source material points out, the greater risk actually lies in what an autonomous agent does with legitimately accessed data, building a deep, predictive model of that user's life. Think about it. When you give an AI access to your email and your calendar just to book a flight, it isn't just storing data. It's actively synthesizing an algorithmic narrative about exactly who you are, what you care about, and what you are most likely going to do next. And naturally, this creates a whole new frontier of ethical hurdles. The critical risks include the complete erosion of traditional anonymity. True informed consent becomes incredibly complicated when an AI can deduce things about you that you never explicitly shared with it. There's also the very real risk of AI acting autonomously on incorrect inferences or hallucinations, which could cause real-world financial or personal damage. This is exactly why the tech industry is being forced to adopt a zero-trust security framework. But honestly, perhaps the most profound risk is the potential loss of human critical thinking and agency. If we outsource all of our planning and our problem-solving to digital employees, we seriously risk losing our own autonomy in the process. It leaves us with a deeply philosophical challenge. As we start delegating our daily decisions to algorithms, how do we ensure that AI remains a tool to augment human intelligence rather than replace it completely? Keeping humans in the loop, maintaining that oversight, is going to be absolutely critical to preserving our agency. Which brings us to our final section. Section 6, the Ultimate AI Prize.
All of this builds to one major conclusion. In the old app economy, winning meant driving app downloads, right? You optimize for App Store SEO just to capture human eyeballs. But in the new agentic economy, those monolithic apps are being completely unbundled. Winning today means optimizing for the intent layer. The ultimate prize isn't necessarily building the smartest AI model in the world, it's controlling the gatekeeper assistant, like the next generation of Siri or Google Assistant, that receives the user's initial request. If your business's API is the default choice that the primary agent routes that request to, you win. The intent layer is the new choke point.
And that leaves us with one massive final thought for this explainer. When these AI gatekeepers become the absolute default brokers of our digital lives, routing our desires and requests to downstream services in milliseconds, will controlling access to user intent become the most valuable real estate in human history? Because the platform wars of the 2030s aren't just about who builds the smartest computer anymore, they are about who gets to mediate our entire relationship with the digital and physical world. Controlling that access? That might just prove infinitely more valuable than the AI products themselves. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and I'll see you next time.